Welcome to the Association's Futures podcast, brought to you by Association Activision. We ask you to join us to discuss the future of the Association's community. How can we build and focus on the many futures we will see during these disruptive times? Let's get started with today's guest.
Welcome to another episode of Association Futures, the podcast where we explore what's next for associations, leadership, and the professionals shaping the future of mission-driven organizations. I'm your host, Michael Butera, and today's conversation is one I've been looking forward to. We're diving into a topic that every association leader wrestles with, whether they admit it or not: communication that actually connects. Because we have the best mission in the world, the most committed members, and the most sophisticated programming, but we can't clearly articulate value and inspire people to care, everything gets harder. To unpack this, I'm joined by someone who has devoted her career to elevating how organizations and authors tell their stories. The brilliant writer and editor, Sally Chetwynd, founder and wordsmith at Brass Castle Arts. Sally, a lifelong word nerd and a friend, welcome to Association Futures.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. I'm glad you invited me.
Well, I'm happy to have you with you. And for everybody out there, so you know that Sally is editing a book I'm working on. So I've had firsthand knowledge of how this works, and she's really tremendous.
Thank you.
Sally, I can't ignore the elephant, that's in the room here. A lot of people are going to want to know, how in heaven's name did you come up with the name Brass Castle Arts?
Well, that has two sources, actually. For years, I've been a historical reenactor. I started out with the bicentennial and then later shifted over to Civil War. And in the Civil War reenacting, I got involved with the engineers. And so I have portrayed, I haven't done much lately, but I have portrayed a field engineer. And the engineers, of course, their symbol is a castle. And during the Civil War, the insignia that different units wore on their hats were made out of brass. And the other source is the fact that I'm from a long line of 4 generations of lighthouse keepers. And in the lighthouse service, brass is used for everything because it doesn't rust. And the other thing is, it doesn't make a spark, which is very important when you're handling oil and kerosene and other such flammables.
What a wonderful story. I always wanted to buy a lighthouse and go out and live in one, but they're not cheap, and they take a lot of work to get up and into historical preservation standards. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for telling us the story about how you got to that wonderful name. One thing that I really appreciate about your work is that you don't approach editing as simply correcting grammar or punctuation, stuff like that. You shape clarity and voice and impact. So for leaders who think, hey, writing's writing, how do you explain the deeper role of a strong editor?
Well, when you think about it, there's no writer, there's nobody that can see the forest for the trees, and that includes me. Insights and perspectives from others enhance my work, and because I've learned so much from others, sharing my work and talking about the profession of the industry, I'm able to bring an awful lot of that to my clients.
Well, that's good to hear. And, association executives and subject matter experts, they're brilliant thinkers, and they're not always clear communicators. What are the most common hurdles that you see, and how do you guide people around them?
I think the two most common are ignorance and combined pride and fear. It just with ignorance. So you had college prep English in high school. So do you produce all your business writing? You were a math whiz in high school, so do you tally the accounts in your multi-million dollar corporation? No. You hire a professional to take care of that, so you can focus on what you're a subject matter expert in.
So,
With the pride and the fear, it's like they go hand in hand. We're really generally too proud to admit that we don't know it all. And then with that comes the fear that if we admitted that, people would think we're weak. And so that might jeopardize our job, our status in the company, or the confidence of our bosses and the people below us. Actually, the opposite is true. When you show that you're vulnerable and you reach out to get ask for help, people go, "Oh, wow, that's great. Let's work together."
yeah, what a wonderful answer, to the question there. So if you could kind of whisper in the ear of a CEO or an association executive when it comes to communication, uh, what would it be?
Education. Um, I find that it's really distressing. You think about it, we're about three generations beyond the basic three, the three R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, to say nothing of history and science. But our status of education in this country, starting from, even preschool, is dismal. We got students coming out of college and high school that don't know how to read and write. They don't know how to add and subtract. They don't have any skills to get a job. And employers are hunting around for people that can do the work that needs to be done. And a lot of this is being engendered by an attitude that Isaac Asimov actually warned us about over 50 years ago. It's like people have this attitude. He was commenting about this country. My ignorance is just as good as your knowledge. Well, I hope that's not the case for the heart surgeon that's just about to operate on you.
How how well said there, yeah. Well, we've all seen the shift, more association leaders, people writing books and launching blogs, podcasts like this, producing, member-facing kind of publications. If someone, as someone who, helps authors, like you've tried to help me, bring ideas to life, what makes a book or a significant written piece helpful and not just good?
It's really all about that polishing. If you're writing something, you've got good ideas, you know what you want to say, but you don't necessarily have expertise in the best way to say it. And if I can see it, especially since I'm not familiar with your work, directly or professionally, I can read it as your readers would read it, although most of your readers are going to be association people. But I will see things that I don't quite understand. It's like, I need a little more information here, or oh, maybe this piece here really needs to go in that chapter because that's more like what you're talking about in that chapter. So it's getting another set of eyes on a piece of work.
For those associations who, executives who say, well, I really don't have a story to tell. I just have all this knowledge up here. I want to get out and let people know. Well, what would you say in return to those people?
Baloney. Everyone has a story. The world is professional at telling us, well, you don't know anything. You can't say this. You shouldn't do that. There's all of this stuff. And it's drilled into us from childhood. Some of us are able to turn around and say back, well, who died and made you God? You know? Yeah. And so people take this stuff to heart and they think that they're the ones that are faulty. And it's not necessarily the case. You've spent all your life, working on this particular topic. You've become a professional. You know stuff that I don't know. And it's important that you might have come up with a solution that other association people go, wow, I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, that's exactly where it is. I mentioned earlier an elephant in the room when we were talking about, the name of your business, but there's a second really big elephant floating around these days, and that's AI and all these new, tools that are being used in publishing and member newsletters and so forth. So, from your vantage point as a real honest to God day-to-day editor knows how this works, what are the most significant risks and greatest opportunities that this new landscape brings?
I think we need to remember that AI is a tool. It's nothing more. It's a very powerful tool. It's a complex tool, but it's a tool. I don't know about the rest of the world, but certainly in America, we generally suffer from shiny object syndrome. So we get this new tool. Here's AI. Wow, it can do everything. It's a hammer, and we're going to use it for a screwdriver.
Yeah,
And it's remarkable how many tasks that AI can free from you, so you don't have to deal with all the what do they call the back office stuff, so you can go about your business. But the big risk is you don't want to be giving it free rein over your very humanity. Don't expect it to think for you. It's only as good as the people who programmed it. Clients want to talk to a live person, especially when you're talking customer support. People call you, they've got a problem with whatever they've got a problem with, whether it's technology stuff or it's they don't quite understand your book or they're having trouble downloading the PDF that you want them to have. Um, that live person needs to be alive, needs a brain, a heart, and a soul. Um, you don't want to abuse that trust. Early this year, I had a disheartening experience with a vendor. I bought a product software that I use in my work, and it was dismissed or it was unlicensed after like 4 weeks. It's like, well, I bought it for a year. What's going on with this subscription? And the more I tried to talk to their customer support, the more I realized I was trying to talk to AI.
hmm,
And it was making it my fault that I was supposed to have come up with, the product number and the license number. It's like, no, you give that to me when I buy the thing.
yeah, yeah.
And I even got my state's AG office of Consumer Affairs involved, and they tried to reach this vendor, and they had no results either.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. You make some calls and I don't know how many times you have to punch a button to try to find the right person because you're not
Yeah,
talking to a person.
no,
You're talking to a machine and we all have idiosyncrasies about the way we talk and act and
yeah.
no technology's caught up to that yet at least. Well, how do associations then use technology to enhance but not erase their voice and their authenticity?
Well, I'd say use caution with any form of technology. Study it thoroughly before committing your business to it and investing lots of money. Consult with experts to determine the best platform or software for your business. Review thoroughly your written products to make sure they convey your association's mission, vision, and voice accurately and authentically. So you're not just plugging stuff into the AI and it's spitting out something and you publish it immediately. And to regularly monitor both the program and the humans running it to ensure that you are managing it, not the other way around. So, following the crowd leads to mediocrity and often to a loss of integrity. Keep it human, and your voice and your authenticity will be obvious.
Yeah, that's such good common sense. You'd
Yeah.
think that we all know it. Yeah.
Well,
Now,
there's a thing about common sense. It doesn't exist. If it did, more people would have it.
very good, very good. So I knew you were a wordsmith. There we go. Without naming names, and can you share one of those moments when the right writing or editing intervention changed the trajectory of a project or a team or some organization that you've been working with?
Actually, I have a couple of them. I, for myself, I had submitted my second novel's manuscript to the self-publishing firm that I had contracted with, and while I was proofreading the galleys that they had typeset, I noticed something was missing. I'm thinking, wait a minute, I wrote more about this. So I checked the draft that I had sent, and sure enough, the missing material was there. They had somehow typeset a previous version. And if I hadn't proofread that, checked those things over carefully, that would have gone into print without that added material. If there was that one error there, what other errors were there?
Yeah, yeah. That's very good advice, this idea of making sure what you put in there is what they actually print in the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Proofreading is hugely valuable. It's tedious, but it has to be done.
Well, one of my experiences is that when you proofread something, you know what you wrote, and you might actually read past the mistake.
Exactly.
That's why you need other people to help you, with editing and proofreading and the like. On the flip side, Sally, what hard lessons from challenging projects can associations learn from?
The hard lessons are the ones that teach us the most. And I think the sooner we accept that, the less likely we are to kick ourselves in the butt when we do make a mistake or we run up against a hard challenge that may or may not be a fault. But too many authors, they publish their first draft without scrutinizing it themselves a second or a third time, without handing it off to colleagues for comment, without having an editor review it. This is a very hard and expensive lesson. A friend of mine wrote a novel, and she put it together in about 4 or 5 months. She sent it right off and got it published. And when it came back in print copies, she sat down to read it, see how it looked. Cover was lovely, and it's wonderful to hold that first print book in your hand with your name on it. It was full of typographical errors. It was full of multiple paragraphs, the same paragraph that hadn't been cut and pasted out. All kinds of errors like that. And she was kind of regretful that she had spent this money for
Yeah.
something that really wasn't marketable.
Yeah, I'll bet. I'll bet. Now, you've had a good career and you've seen the evolution of, professional communications in a way that others do not. So if you take a look ahead, that proverbial 10 years from now, uh, what do you think might change most when it comes to organizational communications?
Everything is, it's not even a matter of what's going to happen. It's happening now. I think it tends to happen constantly, but with the AI-driven world, it's become kind of exponential. Um, and I think that these technological upheavals really, I hope they inspire us to restore our humanity instead of our current flight from it. We get people that are talking about, oh yeah, I'll get a chip installed in my arm and that'll take care of everything. And never have any problems again. Well, they install chips in their babies. It's like, that's just, it makes me cringe. Technology has no soul, it has no wit, it has no discernment, it has no ability to analogize or make comparisons, which is a uniquely human capacity.
Yeah, what a wonderfully put idea for us to think about. So, what should associations start doing right now to stay relevant in this era of the way we now write our communications?
Well, I go back to the education, and that's not necessarily a responsibility entirely of associations. Everybody should be working to bring the 3 R's back into the classroom. We're suffering economic, social, and political bankruptcy these days for our young people, our young generations. We got applicants bringing their mothers to a job interview. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Um,
doesn't make much sense to me.
yeah, and then an employer has an illiterate applicant pool to try to find somebody who can do the job, is willing to do the job. We need to shift the attitude about work and discipline from stigma to pride with mentoring. Get that kid working with you at your elbow. This past year, in June, I took my car down to the shop to get an inspection. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching this man work on it. His 9-year-old son was working with him. So the man is at the machine, the kid's behind the car checking yep, the brake lights are working, yep, so on says. And I was just so impressed with not only the fact that the man had his child learning a trade with him, but that the person who owned the shop was allowing this to happen. Because
Yeah.
that child is going to learn a trade and learn the value of work and learn joy in the work. And I had an opportunity to speak with the boy and his father when they were done. I said, I really appreciate what you're doing here. I'm just thrilled to see this boy here working with his father. This is as it should be.
Yeah, that's great. Before we wrap up, I'm going to have a little bit of fun here with some quick questions. Don't require a big long answers. So let me start with one of my favorites. Oxford comma, yes or no?
I use it more often than not. It's not always necessary, but it's vital when it is. Here's an example. If you're reading this in text, without any commas, Martha Stewart says, I love cooking my pets and my family. I'm not going to her house for dinner. So if you add at least one comma, and you have the option of including the Oxford one or not, Martha Stewart says, I love cooking my pets and my family.
Right, right. Very good, very good. Yeah. Well, maybe this one's unfair. Print or digital?
Well, my eyes prefer print, and I think a lot of that's a generational thing. I'm over 70, and my eyes aren't as good as they used to be, 50 years ago. And and our brains are trained, depending on what we use, our brains are trained to deal with whatever, facet where, the digital reading, it uses a different part of the brain than print reading. And it's not necessarily that one's better than the other. It's just as you do the one, your brain wires to favor that one.
Yeah. Now, I have trouble reading digitally, but I think it has to do with my eyes as well. The background, and my eyes actually tire at the computer or a
Yeah.
tablet
Yeah.
faster than they do with a book. Maybe it is just age, I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah. Well, let me
And
try. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
and and with a print book, you've got that sensory experience. And it's not even always noticeable, the smell of the paper, the feel of the paper,
Yeah,
and
right.
the sound as you flip a page. I mean,
Yeah.
some of the reading devices like Nook or Kindle, whatever, you can set them up so that when you flick to the next page, it makes a little flicking sound.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, my problem is sometimes I flick too fast. I
Yeah.
skip a page, kind of. Let me do another one here. What about the favorite opening line in a book? You got one of those?
Well, that was a little tough because um, I don't generally focus on opening lines, although probably I do, probably subconsciously. But I have to really go with the Bible's book of John, chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Very,
That's pretty
very nice.
powerful stuff.
Yeah, I would say so. Well, now this one is just for me. You ready? Okay. So, best writing fuel, coffee, tea, something more substantial?
Well, my best writing fuel is really breakfast, and that's usually peanut butter on sourdough toast.
Uh,
And I have a 24-ounce mug. Maybe we can see that.
there it
There it
is.
is.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
got it.
With generally green tea, hot green tea.
Green tea.
I have several different varieties of green tea, jasmine and gunpowder. There is a gunpowder tea.
Uh,
So only because
I
it looks like gunpowder. It's kind of grayish, and they roll it when they make tea, loose whole leaf tea. They roll it, and so it rolls into things that look like twigs or balls.
Yeah,
And
I'm a British breakfast tea guy myself,
yeah,
So, well, one more, and then we'll wrap this up. So, first draft, joy or pain?
a lot of it depends on if I know where I'm going. My the first book I started to write and finally finished many, many, many moons later. Um, I kept writing scenes, and they were related, but they weren't connected. And because I didn't know what the premise of the book was, and I didn't know what the ending was. So in the middle of this, I set it down after about 10 years, and I picked up another book idea and I poked through that one. That one, at least I knew where it was going. It didn't take quite as long as the first one. And so when I got the second book done and published it first, the characters from the first book, unpublished, unfinished, came to me in a dream and they said, "Don't forget about us." And I was impressed that after like 10 years of being ignored, they were strong enough to have that power to influence me. So I got back on it. I did about 3 weeks of 20 minutes a day at lunchtime brainstorming, stream of consciousness noodling. What if so and so does this? No, that wouldn't work because, well, in that case, what about? And after about 3 weeks of that, all of a sudden there was the ending, right, blinking at me from the page. It's like, wow, just as if it had always been there. Well, it had been, but I just hadn't extracted it from my brain. And then
Oh,
after that, it was quite easy. I'm working on a historical novel now about Nicodemus, and I've known pretty much what that story arc was going to be all along. And so I've just been having so much fun with that.
I'll bet. I'll bet. Well, Sally, this has really been exceptional, very clear, very thoughtful, and full of that word nerd wisdom that you bring to everything. And I want to thank you for helping us with communications and editing today. And before we wrap up, would you please tell our listeners where they can find you and Brass Castle Arts?
Well, I am at brasscastlearts.com, and
That's
my email is brasscastlearts@gmail.com.
wonderful, wonderful. And I encourage people to look you up. As I mentioned earlier, Sally is an editor of what will be my book, which we've been trying to get done for the last almost year now. But we're going to get it done, Sally. I promise you.
We are making
Yeah.
progress.
Yeah, I know, but you keep giving me so much homework. I really got to work on this.
Well,
So
there's something to remember. Writing and editing, and writing in particular, it's a marathon sport.
yeah, boy, isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? Sally, thank you so very much for being with us today. And to our listeners out there, if today's conversation resonates, please share this episode with your colleagues and take a moment to leave a rating and review. And it helps our mission and it helps you in the association world as well. If you've been listening to Association Futures, where ideas become capacity and capacity shapes what's next. I'm Michael Butera, and till the next time, let's keep leaning forward. Thanks, folks.
Thank you very much.